Hi, my name is Pedro Torres-Basanta, and this video was made in the context of APS1012, Managing Innovation and Transformational Change. This video is the critique of my critical review paper, which was focused on the innovation within the construction industry, and more specifically on the implementation and diffusion of agile project management deliveries within this industry. So, as a little bit of background about myself, I had the chance of working as a project manager for 2 years before starting my master's program in cities engineering. And throughout this journey, I really was able to experience firsthand the lack of innovation that this industry has gone through up until now, and more importantly, the potential for innovation implementation within all levels of the execution of projects, more specifically infrastructure projects. So I was very interested in the agile methodologies and how they could impact the construction industry. So let's get started. In this first section, we will discuss the strengths and weaknesses of the identification and assumptions that were made when defining the problem. First of all, regarding the identification of the problem, I believe that I did a great job at introducing the issue and the problem, which is the lack of innovation within the industry and what clients and contractors have done to implement innovation diffusion throughout the years. So I started by introducing the critical review paper with one sentence that I was hoping would attract readers into further reading this paper. This sentence is Toronto's construction industry is booming. This obviously is backed up by a newspaper which showed the evidence related to the fact that Toronto specifically was the city in North America with the most active cranes throughout the year of 2019. Moreover, I presented a question which was what type of innovation within the construction industry will provide clients and contractors with the best value. This question was the main focus of my critical review paper, and I truthfully wanted to research and find throughout research papers and news articles how construction contractors and construction managers, as well as clients, have done throughout the years to raise the level of competition, raise the level of innovation, and provide better results. So I then went on to describe the way that the paper was structured, and I did so by doing a chronological review of innovation diffusion throughout the years. I then went on to describe the assumptions that I made. These assumptions were not the most precise ones for the following reasons. Even though I did explain my own personal assumptions in the context of this paper, which was the fact that I was studying a construction environment that was safe and that was stable, such as North America and Toronto specifically. However, I did not precise nor explore the assumptions that were made by the authors of the research papers that I used, and I believe that this would have been extremely beneficial in the context of this review. So for that reason, I gave myself a level 2.5 in the assumptions, but a level 4 on the identification. The second part of this review corresponds to the analysis of the problem, and more specifically about the methodology as well as the presentation of alternate points of view. So first of all, regarding the method that was used, I gave this paper a level 4 due to the fact that the method utilized for this investigation was the most appropriate for this context. In fact, the construction industry has experienced some very critical and disruptive innovation throughout the years, but it does lack in numbers. So to present this fact, I basically went on to describe the most basic but most disruptive innovations that have happened within the industry, which correspond to building information modeling, and then went on to present some newer alternatives, such as public-private partnerships when it comes to financing of the projects. And then lastly, the last point was associated with a more innovative way of approaching the construction industry, and more specifically the project management within the execution of the projects, which was the agile delivery. The method that was used to study these facts was through reading research papers and referring to them as part of the critical review, and I believe that it gave the overall paper a very strong authority value when it comes to the information that was provided. After, regarding the alternate points of view, I provided some alternate points of view, and more specifically the ones that referred to the fact that the construction industry had been lacking when it comes to innovation. So even though that this is something that I have experienced firsthand as a project manager, when I see the inefficiencies and how ineffective and unproductive weeks and even months can be throughout construction projects, I ensured that I would back my own thought with some facts that were provided through research papers. That is one example of an alternate point of view that was presented when discussing the innovation within the construction industry. However, even though I provided those alternative points of view, I did not go on to very well account for those. I didn't account for those complexities within my paper, and I stayed at a superficial level of just mentioning them as well as utilizing them for my own argumentation, but I didn't explore them, nor did I go into deep when discussing them. So this is the reason why I gave myself a level of 3.5. After, regarding the credibility of the resources and the source material that I used, I gave myself a confident level 4 because of the nature of the research papers that I used, as well as the news articles that I used. I believe that it was very important for me to introduce this paper with a news article that had a shock value to it, that would intrigue the reader and that would attract anybody interested in this topic. But after, as part of the review and the study of the papers, I ensured that I utilized a wide variety of papers from all around the world, obviously within stable construction environments, that gave different perspectives on the levels of innovation, the needs for innovation, and even more into depth what stages of the projects those innovations were required at. So I believe that the information that was used was enough to provide myself with enough backup for my own argumentation, and that allowed me to create a new perspective on the evolution of innovation diffusion within the industry. When it comes to the conclusions as well as the problem solution, I believe that the limitations that were presented as part of this paper were quite extensive. In fact, I believe that the limitations were more thoroughly discussed than any other section of this paper, just because of the nature of the industry that I'm discussing as part of this context. In fact, I believe that there have been too many limitations and that there have been too many barriers to the innovation diffusion within the industry, and therefore presented the potential for new project management methodologies and the great impact that previous innovations have had on the industry, to describe how much the industry can grow as a result of innovation diffusion. When it comes to the integration, I believe that I very well integrated all of the ideas presented as part of the papers that were studied and combined them well with the different arguments that I had made in relation to the course content. I believe that the paper flowed quite well when it comes to the presentation of the ideas, thanks to its chronological order. And I believe that the solutions that were provided, thanks to the case study that was used for agile methodology, was quite critical and quite powerful when it comes to the innovation context of the construction industry. Lastly, for the conclusion itself, I do believe that even though it is well tied to the rest of the paper, it could have been a little bit more specific, and it could have provided with a little bit more of an open-ended question or an invitation for the reader to do further research and development on the issue, which did not happen. I therefore put myself 3.5. Lastly, I will be presenting the creativity and the communication and adaptation to the audience within this last part. First, when it comes to creativity, I believe that even though the topic of my paper was quite broad, which is the innovation within the construction industry, I tied the topic to an existing methodology, which is the agile project management, which is actually utilized mostly in software development. And as mentioned by point 100, I created a point that crosses boundaries, and I related innovation within one industry to another and added value to the topic that way. I believe that I provided fresh, relevant, and engaging ideas to the topic of innovation within the industry, and provided the reader with enough knowledge points to create their own perspective on the topic and invite them to want to investigate the topic more in depth. When it comes to the communication and adaptation to the audience, I do believe that I took risks when approaching the methodology of this paper, when discussing the chronological evolution of the innovation within the industry, as well as approaching not so well-known innovation that is currently being tested and only adapted by few companies around the world. I do, however, believe that I did not push the limits of this innovation, and I did not extend my research to other components that are available when it comes to the context of innovation within the industry, and that is the reason why I put myself a level 3.5. This concludes the critique video of my critical review assignment, which was related to the innovation within the construction industry, and more specifically, the implementation of agile methodologies within the industry. I really hope that you enjoyed learning more about the industry and hearing my point of view, and I would gladly respond to any questions that you may have. Thank you, and have a good day.